This is the Unleash Your Purpose podcast.
And I want to talk about today is that anxiety is so common. And anxiety is almost like a national pandemic. And I have been through it myself, and you've shared some of my stories, but I've been on the other side of it as well. And I wanted to share a couple strategies with you at the end that has been helpful for me, and hopefully helpful for all of us to be able to work through. But then secondly is how do we develop a sense of peace in the midst of this? If you're like me, anxiety freaks me out and I want to control it. But I have to move from control to peace. And how in the heck do I do that? What we know is anxiety for women in our country. It's the number one medical disorder and number one medical issue that doctors see. For men, it's number two. If men were honest, it would be number one. But men don't tend to share their stuff very easily. But we have 20% of us in this room, 1 out of 5 that have anxiety. Our US spends $48 billion treating it. I don't understand billions, but that's a lot of money, right? We have, within our kids that we serve, look at this. This is anxiety and depression. 2008, 8%. Now, all the way up here in 2020, we're up to 18%. The Pew Research study is they looked at kids who are ages 14 to 17, the most of the kids we serve. What they said is 95% of their friends, 95% of kids say either I have anxiety or my best friend has anxiety. It's an epidemic. And it's always this feeling, I don't know if you've ever been there, like this feeling in your stomach that you get that you just can't get a hold of. It feels, your chest feels heavy. It's that moment you wake up in the middle of the night at 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock and things are racing through your mind. For some of us, I'm talking about anxiety and it's giving you anxiety, right? Why do you even got to bring it up, right? My anxiety, you get me anxious right now. What, do you know me? Yes. How did you know? Because we all wake up. Anxiety is unavoidable, but how we deal with it in the moment is going to be so significant. And my hope is that we can learn to move forward. As we think about why is anxiety so prevalent? We have in our country, we're the richest, we have the safest country in the world, supposedly. We have the best medical care. People are living longer than ever before, but people are anxious. Why do I got anxiety? Right? I mean, my kids, raise your hand if your parent made you wear a helmet when you rode your bike. One, Mark is just very secure. Make sure his princess is safe at all times. But nowadays, when my kids go ride their bikes, I get judged by the entire neighborhood because they don't have a helmet in sight. We always want to make sure our kids are so safe and our world is safe and we make sure that we're secure. And for some reason, we are so anxious. When they surveyed all the other countries in the world, guess what they found? Which country had the biggest anxiety? Switzerland, right? No, us. We have the gold medal of worry. We are the winners of anxiety. When other people from other countries come in from developing countries, they're like, they didn't have anxiety. They move here, all of a sudden, they're full of anxiety. It's found out over and over again. As a psychologist, we think about why this happens. For today, I'll tell you 2 reasons of my observations of why is our world so anxious? Why am I so anxious? Number 1 is that we have exchanged social connections for this. True? When I have opportunities to engage with someone else and to look them in the eye, I almost always will pick the phone. We have exchanged real social interactions for technology, and what has happened in our culture, we have gotten our kids more and more isolated. We have been over bombarded with this tech in our life. And the second thing is that we have too much bad news. Did anyone hear about the shooting at the Chiefs parade? When did you find that out? some of us yesterday, you're behind. The moment it came out, right? What about when there is a terrorist attack or a plane, their thing ripped off of their side? Immediately, right? We get in our world bad news over and over and over again. And what happens in our brain is our brains are not wired to handle that much bad news that much. And our bodies can't handle it. So what happens is that we're just full of anxiety. Our bodies are on overdraft. We're overstimulated, overworked, overcommunicated, over-informed, and we're going to lose. Our brains can't handle it, and there's no way. So we have to do something different. And when we work with our youth and we work with our kids in our homes, I would guess you 90% of them have some sort of anxiety. So how do we help them have freedom and peace is going to be a vital thing for us to think about. When we think of anxiety, it's different than fear, okay? It's different, but our bodies may not recognize it. I live by a mountain. I got all my kids, and what we've noticed is there is this demonic black snake that continues to come down into our backyard. Long, big sucker. And for me, I am terrified of snakes. And for me, when I see this snake and my kids are around, I got two options. I'm either gonna run or I'm gonna fight. And what do? I run. Kids, you're on your own. You kids got to save yourself. Daddy's got to go to safety, right? In fear, what happens is there's fight or flight. We will either run from it or we will fight for it. When we are scared, when we are overwhelmed, when we face something dangerous, our bodies, our cortisol in our stomach gets high. We feel this adrenaline in our body and we're ready to fight or run from the snake, run from the bear, run from the person that we think is going to break into our house, right? That's adaptive. Our kids have fear so they don't run into the street. That is good. But our bodies are not built to handle cortisol like that over and over and over and over again. What the difference is, anxiety is, fear is there's an actual threat. There's a snake. Anxiety is we imagine it in our mind and I cannot move on. I imagine the fear in my mind, and I cannot move on. It's like a tidal wave of what ifs. You know the what ifs? What if there is a snake? What if our car breaks down on the side of the road? What if I'm stuck on the side of the road with all these kids for hours? What if I don't have the money to pay the bills? What if my kid gets sick? What if the plane crashes? What if I have to take care of my kids all the time? What if my parents are stuck with me for the rest of my life? What if my mom dies? You feel that? The what ifs in our brain is anxiety. And our brains continue to think about what if, and our brains go on overdrive. And our anxiety is so high that it becomes fear and we get stuck. And we cannot be stuck like that. I love what Max Lucado says. He says this, the presence of anxiety is unavoidable. We will all have anxiety. But the prison of anxiety is optional. Let me say it again. The presence of anxiety is unavoidable. But the prison of anxiety is optional. We don't have to be stuck in that prison, friends. We don't have to be stuck, held hostage of the what ifs. What if I don't get pregnant? What if I don't have enough? What if that relationship doesn't work? What if? It is heavy. It is exhausting. It is too much. And for me, I will tell you a story about my life in a few minutes. The what ifs of my life have caused me so much hurt. I learned this word. It's merimio. It's a Greek word that in the Bible. So for me, my faith is really important to me. So I'm going to share what I have learned is that anxiety is physical. and it's emotional. But there's also a part of it that is like, for me, it's like a spiritual thing that I have to like release control to. And I cannot pierce it apart. So if you don't have that worldview, that's great, that's fine. But just like hang in there with me for a few minutes, because for me, I don't know how to pull it apart. And for me, like the sense of control that I have in my life has been so high that I only know having this kind of this faith part integrated. The Greek word is like my mind, anxiety in the Bible, what the word is, it's like my mind is divided in a million different ways. My to-do list, you ever got a to-do list so long that you look at it, you're like, oh crap. And you just freeze. I can't do it anymore. Or your list is just so overwhelming and you think about it's like your brain have your computer open to 900 tabs and your phone is frozen because it's just so much. That's what this is talking about. And what I believe is that like God, the God of the universe for me, like didn't want us to be divided. He says he gives us one life and one spirit, and he wants us to have freedom from that. There's this verse that helped me a lot. I'll just read it to you guys. It says this, it says, rejoice in the Lord always. I will say it again, rejoice. Let your gentleness be evident to all. The Lord is near. It says, don't be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. And this is what I had to hone in on. It says, and the peace of God, that's what I want. I need peace, which transcends all understanding, will guard my heart. And what it says at the very beginning, which I think is so interesting, is it's talking about anxiety. And it says, the first thing it says, rejoice. Wait, God, you want me to rejoice in like, I could be not have enough money in the bank? You want me to rejoice that I'm struggling? That I don't have this, my kid is homeless right now? Like, that's what I feel. Like right now, my kid is homeless. Do you want me to rejoice in that, God? I cannot. But he says, no, do not rejoice in that. Rejoice that the one who is bigger gives you peace, and he is in control. Rejoice in, it says, the Lord. And the word the Lord is not like, for me, it's the word he, like in my thinking is like, he could have talked about anything else in that verse, but the Lord means like the one who is in control. That's the word. When we moved in our kids about a year ago now, none of them knew how to swim. Anyone try to teach a kid to swim? Yeah, most of us have, right? We've taught a kid to swim, or you're like, I don't swim. Let me tell you this. When we moved when our kids had to swim, this is my son, Kevin. Kevin was 6 years old, and he was not about that water. He was scared out of his mind. And I'm in the water, and I'm like, Kevin, come here. And I'm smiling. I'm like, son, jump. And what is he doing? No, I can't do it. No, jump to daddy. It's gonna be awesome. The water's a little cold. It's early in the season, but jump. No. And he starts stepping away, and he's terrified. And what happens when I'm frustrated? When my kid's not jumping in the water, any parent knows you get pissed. Jump in this water right now, son. It's gonna be awesome. If you don't jump in this water, I'm gonna take away that tablet. Why do we do that? Because we're crazy. Because why? Why do I do that? Because I know my son if he jumps into my arms, he is gonna be fine. I love him. I'm his dad. I'm with him. He doesn't need to be scared. See, I know something bigger than him. See, I got him. I'm in control. Do not worry. But his behavior doesn't believe that. His behavior precedes his belief. And what we have to do is our belief of what we have has to precede what we do. There is this old study that was in World War II. And what I love, World War II, all of our troops go to fight the war. Two types of military that get deployed. One is the ground troops, the ones that are on the ground with the guns. The second are the pilots. And what they found out is that the military that are inside on the ground, they're worried all day that they're going to be shot. They got bullets coming by their head and they're freaked out. So what they found out is if they don't have a time of rest to reset with every 60 days, they're going to have a panic attack and be anxious and not be able to move on. But they found out the opposite was true with the pilots. The pilots were actually killed twice as often as the ground troops. These guys were shot down, but they didn't have to take a break. Why? Because they felt like they were in control. Why? Because they had this joystick when they're driving the plane, and they felt like they were in control. They perceived control of that situation, so they were less anxious. So what we do is that we perceive that we are in control so often, and I gotta just control. My job right now in my life is when I have anxiety, you are like me. We control. If I don't have enough money, so I'm gonna check my bank account 100 times, or I'm gonna avoid looking at it because I'd rather just not know, okay? Or raise your hand if you've ever tried to control your kids. Yes. How's that work? Jump to me, kid. It doesn't always work that well. Anyone ever tried to control their partner? That don't work that well. You gotta let your spouse do them. Because if I just try to control everything, I will be full of anxiety. A year ago today, or not a year ago, about June of this time last year, I've told you this story before, but I'll tell you the after part. We move in all of our kids into our home, and I can take on a lot. I love a lot. I love a lot of life, and we have no kitchen in our house, which is like, have you ever lived in it without a kitchen and had kids? It's hard. So we have a microwave for 9 kids, and we have a little tiny fridge. And I have a baby who cries all the time. And then I have a big business. I have a beautiful wife that can bring some anxiety into my life. That's right. And I remember so clearly that we're staying at like this hotel with 9 kids, and they're screaming and crying. And I could feel my heart racing. I could not sleep all night. I got all these canker sores in my mouth. My stress, when they get so high, I get sores in my mouth. I cannot sleep. What if this happens? What if that happens? What if the kids end up doing this? What if I end up losing? I go dark. Anyone else go dark? Like, what if I lose my marriage? What if these kids aren't here? It just goes bad. And I spiral. And then I go to work, and we're sitting in meetings, and we're talking about how, we're looking at, you look at your checking account. I was looking at my checking account. I'm like, is that right? There's no way that's right. There's no way. And I was so stressed out. And I remember so vividly leaving that office. After minutes before that, I was up at my house talking to the person doing the construction on my house. And I was expecting the kitchen to be done, and it's not. So what do? I scream. I yell at them. I'm not my best version. Because when we are out of control, when we need to feel like we are in control, we are most out of control. We end up hurting other people and say things we shouldn't because I felt like I have lost it. So I drive off, I'm in my car, and my heart is racing. I cannot breathe. I feel like I'm having a heart attack where you can't get any breath. And I sit in the intersection of 19th Ave and Broadway, and I literally just start to throw up. The light is green. I am hysterically crying. I am puking in my car, and I cannot move. I know I'm dying, but I'm not. I'm having a panic attack, right? I am so overwhelmed because feel like I have to control everything in my life that I cannot move forward, and I am stuck. That night, I sit in the hotel room with Sarah, and I'm curled up like a little baby, almost a 40-year-old man with 4 graduate degrees, who studies anxiety, who understands the brain better than most, cannot get out of bed. Because I have had to control everything for so long. and I am holding on, and I just can't do it anymore. Friends, are you anxious? Maybe you haven't been there, but you know the feeling. And being in that posture your whole life is torture. And I began a journey of actually needing to be well. I would say fast forward now to this month has been another intense month that a year ago would have caused me to be curled up like a baby again. But this time it's different because I have said, I am not in control, that I am not, and I can release it over to the one who is. For me, I know I can't do this on my own. And I have to breathe and say, when I look back at my life and I look at like how God has intervened, like he's batting 1,000. Does that make sense? Like there's been a lot of hard times as a kid, as now, we all do. But when I look at my life, I've seen him come through over and over again. So I can trust that. And so for me, it's like choosing that in the midst of chaos. And it's not like, and I have to, it says, rejoice in the Lord always. Okay, I rejoice that you are in control and I am not. So this last year, I have been practicing this release of control. And I can tell you is that when things are crazy, I'm not curled up anymore. I feel present. I have peace. And the peace that transcends all understanding. And it's being able to say, the what ifs will come, but there is more to that than just a bunch of what ifs. There is a God who controls the what ifs. That's a very beautiful thing. So here are some different strategies. On your way out, I'm going to give you a piece of paper that's like 8 strategies to help with anxiety. You are to give this to your staff and give it to your kids and to plant it in your heart. My challenge for you is to pick one. I have done all 8 of these, and I am wired hot and intense, but it has helped me be present and have peace. So imagine a safe. When worry comes, which it does, it will always be there, but we have to choose when to deal with it and when to put it away. So for me, when I am most stressed out, I have to put worry in its place. What I do is I have a journal every single morning. My kids have seen me do it. I get up before anyone else does, and I read a devotion, I read the scriptures, and then I journal. And what I do is I first have to put worry in its place. On one side of the paper, I say, it's my prayers, it's my worries. God, it's a worry about my kids' health, about the stress of life. Okay, my worries, I list it out. And then on the other side of the worry, what I have learned is that we've talked about this in November, but this sense of gratitude is like I have to write out a list because my worries are high, and then I force myself to write out like a grateful. Thank you, God, for my wife and my family. Thank you that I have enough today. Thank you that my mom got to retire. Thank you that I have a great team. Thank you that I have my health. Thank you that I have another day to try again. Thank you that I am strong enough to fight this demon one more day. And what it does is it puts things in perspective that I am grateful, and then the worry starts to come down. And what I do is I close this book and I visually put it in a safe and I lock it down. So for you, it's like a picture in my mind. I'm going to shut it in the safe and it's till tomorrow. Some of us have to do that because our races say, nope, that's for tomorrow. I did my worrying for today. And I have to put it away because you can't control it all. The what ifs are not productive. The third thing that I do is I practice this thing called mindfulness. If you're a therapist or work with kids, you need to learn this. Mindfulness is just being present. It's like this. I'm stressed out on Saturday. When am I not stressed? I should just be talking every day. I'm stressed out on Saturday morning. I go to sit on my front porch or sit out front, and the weather is nice. And I got no cell phone, no technology, and no music. no podcast, no kids around, and I just am quiet and still in my voice. And I look at the tree and I see a bird. I'm like, wow, that's pretty cool. Look at that bird. Look at that. No worries in life. I look at this leaf and I'm like, this is so cheesy, right? This is cheesy. Wow, that leaf. Look at that cool. Look at the sun coming down from the early morning. Look at the warmth on my skin. And then I start breathing, and I practice that breathing. When I'm anxious, I do my 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 breathing. I do that box breathing we trained you in, and I'm present. I recognize my breath, and what happens? My cortisol level in my body starts to lower down. The cortisol starts to go down, and I am present. Here's 2 apps that I have on my phone that I use all the time. One is Calm. It's a meditation. It helps you sleep. I play a thing, and it helps me reset because being quiet at first is awkward. This is one that is like more faith-based. This one's not. They're both free trials and pretty cool little tools to use. So when I'm like trying to practice mindfulness, I can try that out. Put in place in its worry, practicing gratitude, mindfulness. The other 2 is my body. What do? This is destroying us. This is destroying us. And I don't mean to be overly dramatic about it. I use it all the time. But I have to know that when my anxiety is most high, I need to not look at my feed. When my kids have, we have instituted in our family like this tech-free Sundays where there's no technology allowed. At first, the kids hate it. But guess what? You've noticed this. When kids are on technology all day, they turn into what? Little demon children. That's what they turn into. They're nice and be babysat, but after they come off it, their brain is just wired and hot, and they're just so pissed off that they're off it. The dopamine of the brain just cannot get under control. And what we have done is being tech-free, they were like withdrawing from it, but what we've noticed is that now they are able to be present. They play, they laugh like kids, and the same thing is true for us. Like yesterday, I come home, my brain is fried. The thing I want to do is mindlessly check out and do this, but I say, no, I lost my phone in my house somewhere. I don't even know why, because I said, forget it. I'm not going to deal with this. I'm just going to be present. So limit your screen time. We know, psychologists tell you this, the higher your anxiety, the higher your screen time. Every time, 1-to-1. The more you're on your phone, the higher your anxiety, and do with that what you want. And number 2 is to get outside, walk, feel the weather. That changes things and helps with anxiety. And last 3 is my challenge for you is to pick one of these. And if you don't got anxiety, can you come teach us next week and how to do that? But if you do, pick one, please. Number 1 is that meditate on good words. Like for me, we have a paper here. On one page, it has all these different mantras and Bible verses. So one is like from just different mantras. Don't believe every worried thought you have. Worried thoughts are notoriously inaccurate. Like positive words. Think of positive things, and here are some words to meditate on. The next one is to extend grace. For us, friends, it's like, I don't know if you're like me. Sarah and I went out to dinner this weekend. This weekend on a date. Yeah, oh. You know what? We're trying to practice that. It was good. First time drinking wine in a while. It was fun. So we went on a date, and it was like a nicer restaurant, and I got dressed up. I looked good, and she looked really good. And we're like all with adults, and the sun is setting, and I look over two tables over, and there is this couple with this damn kid. I got dressed up to be away from kids. And immediately, what am I feeling? I'm irritated that there's a kid at this nice restaurant. And what happens? I'm frustrated. I'm like enjoying this time, and this kid is yelling and screaming at this nice place. I'm just like, can't you just control your kid? Don't you know this is a nice place? See, and what happens in our head, we start telling ourselves these narratives that are not there. And I honestly had to go into the restroom to reset myself and be like, hey, praise God they only got one kid. I wish I could do that. And I had to extend grace to them. I was like, man, I would love to be on vacation here and be able to do that. So I had to honestly extend grace to them and reset my mind to be like, and then after that, I was good. It was fine. So for us, sometimes when we're most anxious and frustrated, you got to extend grace to somebody else because your emotions control you. We're all emotional people. And the reason you're emotional is not because of someone else, it's because of you. It's because of me. And we got to deal with our stuff. And the last one is I have to relinquish control. Friends, we cannot live that life like this. We have to know that there is something bigger that I have to relinquish control to. And that is where true healing comes. So as we think about this next month, my encouragement to you guys is to pick one and to practice it within your groups, within your teams. And then my hope is that we can all move from control to peace. Amen? Amen.
Thanks for joining us for the Unleash Your Purpose podcast. Be sure to like, subscribe, and leave a review. We'll see you next week.